Hi, I'm Deborah Price, founder and CEO of the Money Coaching Institute, and this is Conversations About Money. And today I have the honor and privilege of speaking to one of my favorite people in the world, Kavita Dhamani, who is from India. And I'm going to let her tell a little bit more about herself, but she has a very, very extensive financial background and has worked in corporate finance and in the investment world, institutional investment world in particular, but has left that to join us in the field of money coaching. I'm also really excited to share with you today that Kavita is now going to be the new Director of Development and lead trainer for the Money Coaching Institute in India and parts of Asia as well. So, Kavita, first of all, it's so wonderful to see you. Let's chat about, first of all, tell me about where you are in India and what's happening in India today relative to money coaching, which is a relatively new concept. Tell me what your experience has been there.
Hi, Deborah. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's really my privilege to be on this show with you. And I'm so excited and looking forward to, working together with Money Coaching Institute, and spreading the work because this has really become my life's work. Literally, I've had 20 years of a career that I have thoroughly enjoyed and loved. And even when I started my money coaching journey, and I started out as a coach, first of all, I never thought I could ever be a coach.
Mm,
And it just happened organically. And even when I did start with with coaching, and I started to pursue it, and I loved it. I always thought that these two are parallel worlds, which will always
mhm,
be parallel and go
mhm,
on like that for me forever because I just loved both of those worlds until last year when, there came a point where I just realized that, my love and passion for my coaching world and, the work that I do has outgrown, my love for my work to the extent that I, didn't feel excited about my corporate work anymore. So that's when I thought it was time that I quit that and, dedicatedly work on this aspect. And a great deal of that, the credit goes to you, to money coaching, because that was really the missing piece that, led me into this years back when I was, at this point when I was exploring something. I mean, it was probably a calling of my soul, which
mm,
was making
yeah,
me feel that there's something more that I needed to do, some other way that I needed to contribute. And I even then did not think it could be like, something else in terms of work. I just thought I need to just go out and do some community service. And I was trying to find ways of doing that because it was just a calling from within. And I stumbled upon, and I know it's just something little that I would probably want to share with you in terms of, like you shared, that in my corporate job, I have been with the institutional world of investing, and I've worked with, institutions like Macquarie, Moody's, Fidelity in India, in the UK, and
yeah,
all of this while, every time I'm a chartered accountant, like, by profession, so I'm a qualified chartered accountant. I started off and I started doing all of these things. And what I did see around me was such a contrast. Like, as a professional, work that I was doing all of these fancy, equity models and fancy
right.
spreadsheets and, or, taking these sophisticated decisions and all of that. But honestly, my own money was a mess. And that was something that never made sense to me. And, and then that was not it, that it was like my friends, family, not just limited to that, my colleagues. Like when I say my colleagues, these are senior finance professionals, senior investment professionals, like not all of them, but many of them were great at their jobs, but actually,
Mhm,
still were overwhelmed with their personal money decisions. It could show
right.
up as overwhelm. It could sometimes show up as avoidance. It could show up as um, not having time,
Yeah.
and just keep putting it off forever. So it's just something that, that was a contrast that kind of led me into this journey of finding this for myself, like, the answer to this, that no, this can't be such a puzzle. Like, I need to, just resolve this for myself. And then, when I did, I really wanted to share it with the world. But then that the part is that, that knowledge, when I started off thinking that maybe it is a knowledge gap, it's something that, we are not
Right,
finding time to
right.
do. It was only when I kind of stumbled upon money coaching, that's when it kind of, the missing piece that was there, that's what I found, and that also revealed my life purpose to
Yeah.
me. So, you know and in this entire journey, you've been such a great mentor to me. So thank you so
Been
much.
my
Thank you
pleasure.
so much.
Yeah,
In India,
absolutely.
coming back to your question, I am based in Gurgaon in India. It's one of the metropolitan cities, so that's the urban India. And then India is really changing very drastically at a very fast speed.
Mhm.
So yes, when I kind of started off, um, money coaching was unheard of, and even today, to be
Yeah,
honest, sometimes people, because there's so much of social media and all of that,
right.
people tend to, it sounds fancy, and people sometimes tend to loosely use the word money coaching. But to the
Yeah,
depth of I don't think people really understand the depth of the psychology behind
right.
and the relationship with money, and the depths that you took me through when I first did my money coaching.
We did a pretty
And
big dive, deep dive, didn't we?
absolutely, absolutely, that was life changing for me. I mean, it wasn't just financial life, it was a 360-degree turnaround for
Yeah,
me, for my entire life. So it made me discover myself in ways that I never knew.
yeah,
So, and that's the work that we do with everybody, right? That
right.
everybody that we work with. So it's
The
very
opportunity
interesting.
is there, right? That's the thing, is the opportunity for anybody who really wants to know themselves and to evolve in their own awareness and consciousness. The opportunity is there. Not everybody takes the opportunity. You know what I mean? You took it and ran with it. And I'll just tell you, you are a very different person. I mean, your core person is still the same, but you've evolved tremendously. I've watched it and I'm just so amazed and so proud of you.
Thank you so much. And that means so much because, yes, it has taken conscious effort and conscious awareness to evolve to be the person that I am today. And I am proud of myself for the version that I am today.
And you should be.
So, yeah, so, that's what meant when I said that it was a 360-degree life-changing, experience for me. And that's what it is for everyone that we do it with. It's just that it's something that people are not so much aware of, and the conversations have begun. We are spreading awareness. People are becoming more aware, and
That's right.
it's just something which is so fundamental that I feel like every person should go through it.
Well, that's our vision and mission because, and I'm so glad that you brought up how you had this perception about, how is it possible that financial professionals could have their own money be so challenging, And because the truth is, I see the same thing when I work with therapists because we train a lot of therapists, we train a lot of financial professionals and others as well. But I would say that because so many people feel that they're not doing the right things, they accumulate a lot of shame and a lot of pain around that. And that's what usually creates more challenges, including avoidance. Because if you feel shameful, you don't want to go visit that shame every day and look at it, right? You're just like, let's just put it over there and we'll get to it eventually. But, one of the reasons that I have insisted from the beginning that every single certified money coach is actually needs to go through the money coaching process themselves is because I'm very aware personally, like ground zero right here, that I had my own stuff and I knew there was something up, but I didn't know what it was. And that's what set me on this journey is first to understand myself. And lots of years of therapy never uncovered any of my money issues ever. So therapy is wonderful and we're advocates. Financial planning and investment advisory services, they're wonderful. We need them. But there's a gap here in this field, which is understanding ourselves and our own much more subconsciously driven patterns and behaviors that are so emotionally driven. But because we don't know them, we haven't named them, of course, financial professionals will have them too. They're just human beings. And so, to anybody listening to this, if you're a financial professional of any kind, a therapist or anybody else who thinks, oh my God, I don't want anyone to know, the best thing you can do is know for yourself. And as you begin to name things, you have a lot of power to change it. And that is going to be a game changer for anybody's life. And Kavita here is just a testament to that, quite frankly. And
Absolutely. Deborah, I would just pause you there once, and I'm glad you spoke about shame. I am absolutely a testament to that, because you
yeah,
think about it, any human being who's a chartered accountant, like, it's the highest degree in finance, right? It's you are working in, equity research, you're working for these
right.
institutions, you're doing a great job over there. It's not like you're struggling, you're thriving, you're doing really well, you're really good at what you do. You are intellectually kind of evolving and learning new things, and
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, if you are not managing, sorry about that, at the same time, if you're not managing your own money, how are you going to face that? How do you accept it? I couldn't accept it for the longest time. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
could never accept it, to be honest. And yes, like you rightly said, that would, I didn't understand it then, but it obviously, there's a lot of shame that,
Right.
unconsciously accumulates, saying that, look, how can I? And you're just trying to be then put up a facade and say, oh,
Right.
I kind of know it all, but I don't. I'm like, I'm so scared inside to say, to even admit to myself that no, I don't know it.
Right.
I like, my money is a mess. And that, to live with that, it's not easy.
Right.
Yeah, it's
True.
and that's what every financial professional, I mean, not every, but many of them go through. And like I said, that, initially you would think that maybe I don't have the time for it right now. We keep putting it off, and we keep finding excuses,
Right.
and like, those are defenses, to defend
Absolutely. Just defense structures.
ourselves. Exactly. And it was only when I came across this entire, concept of money coaching, and it was just so intriguing. And until then, I had only known the intellectual side of money. But
Hmm.
then, only after I got to know money coaching, that was when I kind of got introduced to the human side of money. And I'm so glad I did,
Yeah.
because I was living like a very different person, like a very 50% person, if I can say so.
Yeah. And
Yeah, it wasn't.
the thing that's fascinating is that the fact that the average financial professional who really does do probably the best job they can for their clients, certified financial planners, investment advisors, they really do. I mean, people used to tell me all the time, you are a great financial advisor. I am so glad that I found you. And I had a tremendous referral business and I was very good at my job, you know? And I don't even question that because I would get it fed back to me and I just know that was true, right? So here's the validation of our work. Financial planners, advisors, etc., are great with their own clients because they're not emotionally attached to their money and they don't have the same patterns running their decision making process the way they do when it's their money. So we can compartmentalize and be excellent at our jobs as financial planners and advisors or therapists or whatever it is. But when it comes to our own dynamics, because of the subconscious nature and those hardwired patterns, when we're dealing with our own stuff, those patterns just rise to the top, and that's where the challenges arise. So it doesn't mean it's not either or. You can be plenty good and maybe even the best in your field and still have money issues that you don't know about, and that's something you should be curious about because knowing is life changing because it can give you an enormous advantage to open up. It's like the aperture of a camera. Suddenly you can see what you could never see before. And that's where the advantage is to be able to change and evolve and begin to actually have the life you really want without the guilt and shame. What a concept, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's, again, when I say your money is a mess, it need not be like 100%. But
Right.
as a professional that who's giving that kind of services to others, you would want it to be like 100% perfect, wouldn't you? And but like you said, that when you accumulate these things, you just shut down sometimes on certain things. You
That's
don't
right.
want to face them. and
That's right.
and you know and it's like you just keep putting. And I mean, it's also very nice how you said that you're able to compartmentalize. Let me confess, in fact, I've been that person even for my own, a lot of our own decisions. A lot of times we, as a couple, when there are certain decisions we have to take, bigger
Hmm.
decisions, buying a house, whether you go with a loan, whether you put a down payment. In those, some of those moments, I have always been, and I can be that person who is very, uh, you know, I can cut down the emotion. And I am very
Hmm.
like, let's put the numbers down, let's run
Right.
the spreadsheet, and whatever that says, we'll go with that. But then there have been areas and pockets where I just shut down
Yeah.
completely, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look at this later. This is something, and that used to be the case.
Right.
And so, and another example, which is something that I experienced very closely, was somebody who's really suggested to me. Now, this person, without naming anybody and without giving more specifics, this person is a CEO of a big corporation,
Hmm.
and he was very impressed with the work. And
Hmm.
he said that it's amazing the work that you're doing. And I must tell you, the CFO sitting in the next cabin over
Hmm.
here, he really needs your help.
Mm.
But I can also tell you he's not going to be open to it, because I
Yeah.
have tried really hard to tell him he is the CFO. It's not like he can't take good financial
Right.
decisions,
Right.
but he has all his money in FDs. Like,
Hmm.
FDs are fixed deposits,
Yeah.
and that's not the
Fear
best
based.
way to
Yeah.
invest. You
Yeah.
know, uh, so he says, I have been tired of telling him. He's a friend, he's a colleague, and I think he really needs your help, but he's not open to it. I
Yeah.
don't think I mean, so if so that's that degree of, um, that degree of, where people need help. And particularly, what I've seen is, for women, at least it's easier to come forward and say, okay,
Yeah.
either they
No
choose to
question.
avoid it and say that I'm not going to handle this, somebody else looks at it for me.
Yeah.
And it's fine, because I have the choice, I have the privilege of having that choice a lot of times. But for men, just the way society is, after a certain age, they people just start looking up to them and start expecting that, okay, you know it all,
Right.
you are going to be taking those decisions. Now, how is he, how does he even take those decisions? First of all, financial literacy has was not so prevalent. Only in the recent sometimes, things are getting better and people are more aware. Even if we were talking about the knowledge gap, of course, this is not the knowledge gap, but it's something that they don't have the opportunity to deal with. So,
Yeah. It's true.
and
It's
and
not
they
a,
don't have the option to admit that I don't know this, and I don't know what to do with it.
well, it's fascinating to me too, the billions, literally worldwide, billions spent on financial education and literacy, which, by the way, we also advocate. But the research shows that financial education and literacy doesn't work long term. It doesn't.
Yeah,
It
it
falls
doesn't.
apart after 6 to 9 months. And that's because it's
Sometimes,
not a knowledge
sometimes,
gap, it's a behavior gap. And if we don't address the behavior gap, the knowledge just isn't sufficient alone to overcome that. So, these are really important things that we really need to message and help people understand is that we don't have a knowledge gap around money. We have a behavior gap. And until that's addressed, and financial services companies worldwide and people understand that there is a way to move beyond that. And it doesn't even take that long. I mean, our core process, what is done in an average of about 5 hours, you know exactly. It'll be mapped out in a clear and visible way, exactly what's going on. And then from there, you work to change that, right? But gee, it's a very small commitment of time and resources to finally understand what's really going on so that it can be addressed, right? So for you now, you're actively coaching, you're no longer in the financial services industry. How has that been going for you? What kinds of experiences are you having? And how do you think that overall the Indian market and culture are taking in money coaching so far?
So I must say I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Hmm.
It's going well. And, I will just first start with the financial literacy bit you said. I would disagree that, people would even go on up to 6 to 9 months. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
that's the myth,
Um,
really.
yeah, that's what I have seen because, that financial literacy, like I said, was an area that I started working in much earlier than money coaching.
Right, right.
Um, and people are not even able to, like, they get very excited about it. Now, at least they have the knowledge, but, knowing something is not equivalent to doing it.
That's right.
And and the execution doesn't happen.
That's right.
It's simply maybe a day or two, sometimes a week, um, but people struggle to execute. And, of course, it varies from person to person, depending on, what sort of patterns and behaviors each one carries. Someone's better than other. Some people are really
Sure.
good and they can really do it, and and that's brilliant. And it's lovely to come across those kind of people. But that's not a very huge population.
Right.
Um, and it has nothing to do with financial literacy or literacy in general or intellect. Like,
That's right.
so people may think that, oh, you need to be really like an intellectual or witty person to be able to do this. No, that's a myth that people should know.
And it's
um
actually part of the problem in and of itself, that myth that people honestly, I mean, I can't tell you how many people have just told me, I just don't understand money. I don't understand investments. I don't understand. Nobody taught me. But the fact of the matter is most personal finance in general is basic arithmetic. And so it's not that they don't know, but they have told themselves the story, which is part of the compensation system and part of the defense structure. I don't know and I don't know how becomes the rationalization, but that's not actually true when you look at it, right? Like
yeah,
what's
that's true.
underneath that is a different dynamic altogether that is more emotional and behaviorally driven, such as
Yeah,
I have a client right now who I adore. She's fascinating, brilliant, and has enormous potential, but she has told herself forever, I'm just not good with money. And, I'll say, well, I see that there's evidence in your life that you haven't been as good with money as you could have, but I don't think it's because you lack any capacity to be good with money, right? What she
yeah,
was lacking, truthfully, was an understanding of how traumatized she was in her childhood around her parents' money dynamics, which, of course, filtered down to her, like, this is what we know happens. But what's been really interesting, because she's done a really big body of work now, is even though she's still not that good at the practical side, like she's learning and she's adapting, because for some people that can take a while. But the thing that's really fascinating is her warrior has started to show up daily. Like she'll send me a text and say, I'm thinking about doing this, but I'm also realizing that's a lot of money and I probably shouldn't spend that right now. And I'll just say, that is the best text you could have sent me. Because what that tells me now is you're now hitting the pause button and reflecting before you go and do the thing. Whereas before, you just did it. It didn't matter how much it cost, and you didn't consider any of the consequences. Now you're stopping because the warrior grows in direct relationship to our conscious awareness and the person's willingness and desire to change, right? So
yeah,
she's not perfect with money yet, and I'm not worried about that. She's getting there. And some people you
absolutely.
can't push too much on that practical side too soon, which is why we always say don't try the practical stuff until you understand the behavioral stuff, because that practical stuff is going to be a waste of your time until that person's really ready and has incorporated more of the positive aspects of the warrior and or the magician. These are archetypes that we work with for all of you listening. And we want to develop the warrior and magician. And as we do, some of the other more challenging archetypes start to dissipate because now they understand them. Now they have another place to go and another place to grow into. And it's so exciting to watch that, even if it's slow. It's not always slow with everybody. I mean, what have you seen with that in your own practice? Just like moving from whatever the archetypal dynamics are that are challenging into, how long is that? Are you seeing that be like something that's been easy or more challenging, or how does it work?
It varies from person to person, is what I would say. But it sometimes can be like this also. With some people, just like you said, and when you were describing this client of yours, I could relate to another client I've had,
Mhm.
very similar kind of experience with. So I could just completely think about her. But at the same time, I've also had somebody who's been brilliant, like who evolved, and who evolved so well. And in fact, she was one of my initial clients.
Mm.
And I see her growth over the years, and I'm still in touch with her, and still connected, and still she drops me some messages, where, like, I've been able to see that whole transition with her
Mhm.
in terms of her life. She is now incorporated in an organization.
Well,
She and that's just the beginning. That's just the
mhm.
beginning of a new chapter in her life. She was a very young girl. She was still exploring options. She was not sure if she wanted to do a job. She was not independent, didn't have parents' support. So it was, but then the way, she has transformed, and being so unsure whether she would be able to live on her own and manage or on her own for an entire month, to now moving cities, living in a different city, being all by herself, moving, shifting careers, uh, getting a lot of,
That's wonderful.
a lot of hikes in her career, to taking all of those decisions. She moved out independently, started living in the same city initially. Now she has moved cities. She's incorporated and organized. I feel so proud every time she sends me these messages
Oh, that's so
and says, "This
wonderful.
is where I am." And she circles back to, thanks to the journey that we did together,
Yeah,
that now I am able to step into all of this. I never thought this could be ever possible.
yeah.
So, that's something, you know, I had, um, this is something very personal I will share. Um, I had my baby a few years back, and there was, she was one of the clients I was still working with at that point, and there
Hmm.
were a few others. And, at that time, through my pregnancy, actually, before having my baby, it wasn't a very easy pregnancy, but this work was something that I was so excited about. It would, like, I would be so passionate about.
Yeah.
I was also doing like a full-time job at that time. So, most of these calls I would do late nights after my office, after
Hmm.
wrapping up. And even my corporate job, like I said, I've always loved it. It wasn't something I wanted to ever run away from. So,
Right.
I thoroughly enjoyed that part of my life, and I was doing this. And, you know, something profound that I realized, I think I've been blessed with a magical baby, because
She
my
is pretty
journey
precious.
she is. And my pregnancy journey, all of my pregnancy journey, I was completely consumed into my money coaching, helping people. So my mental state was, was like there, like so positive.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had uncovered all of these, dynamics for myself, and I had resolved a lot of those. I think my baby, like, I'm so blessed because I spent my pregnancy months, in that state of mind that I really have a miraculous baby.
Well, oh,
And
she's
she
also
embodies
the youngest
everything.
probably to be money coach because she's already Little Miss Money Coach, and
Oh, yes,
she's starting to understand all these things at such a young and precious age that who knows what she's going to do. She's going to be something. And as you
absolutely. And
know,
we will look forward to it.
I love her, so I think you're right.
She
She's a
really is.
magical child.
She's blessed. She's blessed to have, all of these blessings. And you have to see her face. She brightens up when she calls herself this Miss Little Money Coach.
It's so
Uh,
cute. Very cute. I love it. So,
so anyways, coming back to, how things are in India, they
mhm,
are evolving. People are getting more and more aware. Of course, like I said, you can't, it's some when you don't know about something, you just don't know. You can't question it. You can't go
yeah.
trying to find it. Like I never knew about it when I didn't. It's just that, yeah, but people are now, as the awareness is spreading, and I'm trying to do that. That I'm sure in the times to come we are going to do a lot more on that front.
Oh,
And
no
as
question.
people, and one other thing that I must share is everyone that I have worked with so far, I haven't put out one advertisement at all.
Wow, that's
People
fantastic.
have come looking for me. And
Mm,
people have come looking for me only because at some point in some group, in somewhere, I introduced myself, they heard about this, they got aware about the fact that there's something like
yeah,
this exists,
yeah.
and they came searching for me. Uh, every single client that I have, I've got like that because I literally haven't advertised at all. So,
Well, that's
that's
very
another
unique and
blessing.
a very good sign, that, people are hungry for it and all you needed to do, which is actually something that I tell coaches, in when they're in Warrior Boot Camp. You need to be visible in your community because there aren't going to be many of you around, relatively speaking, and there will be sort of a resonance when you talk about money coaching with certain people where they'll go, yep, I know I could use that. I think I need that. But they never may have even considered it until you were there and you were in the space and you became visible and you spoke and you had a message that really spoke to some part of themselves and a need. So I'm so glad that you're having that experience.
Yeah, yeah. And that just kind of tells us that, people really need it. Once they are
Mhm.
aware of it, they come looking for it. So that's where we are in India, in terms of how things are.
Well, in India, one of the things I think that, as we move forward to do the development of India and the training, and then, of course, the consumer market will go hand in hand with that, is just this sense of that you don't have to be, poor and broke and fallen down and on almost on the streets to need money coaching, right? Literally anybody with a bank account and a credit card and in a human body could benefit from money coaching. So, in a country where there's a huge economic divide, I think it's important to just message money coaching works just as well for affluent people as it does for people who are struggling. In fact, in some ways, I think because my clients are all over the board, but I have a lot of quite affluent clients who come to me because they're saying, "Look, my partner and I, we can't talk about money. It's a problem." And in India, I know that's a big deal. So that's a huge market because of how the socioeconomics have been and how women have unfortunately been somewhat oppressed still, and with arranged marriages still being very part of that. There's a lot going on, and we're not looking to upset the apple cart there, We're just looking to help people, regardless of whatever it is or however you came together to form this union. It's a good idea to learn how to do money together in a healthy way and to really have a sense of participation and cooperation and collaborate on this. It's going to make it easier and better for everybody, right? And I know you've done some work in that area too, right? So the couples and money is a really big issue, but just the whole idea is you don't have to be down and out financially to benefit from money coaching. The socioeconomics really do not matter at all. And I love
Absolutely.
working at all the different people in the world, regardless of their culture or economics. It's always fascinating. And as you know, you're never bored doing this work. So I'm,
So no, what is not, it's not even a question.
yeah.
Yeah, I would like to add to that, Deborah. In fact, there are a couple of things that you brought up, and I would agree. In fact, the divide, like, in terms of people who may need it, when I started out, a lot of people told me you must focus on women. And
Mm,
I was, I had really put my foot down and said that no, because men need it as much.
that's right. Yeah.
Why should I only work with women? So I kind of kept it pretty broad and open. But over the years, what I have realized, and that's a little bit of pivot that I'm starting to make now,
Mm,
is working with women, more women, because not because it's only women who have the challenges. It's like I said,
yeah.
we both kind of know it's men also. In fact, what we were just discussing, I think before the call, that it's women have at least the option of saying that you're okay. I choose not to handle the
Right.
money.
That's right.
Men don't have that choice.
That's
They,
right.
whether they wherever they stand, they just suddenly expected at one point
That's
to
right.
know it all and to handle it irrespective of whatever they may know, may not know, may feel, may not feel, psychologically
That's
and
right.
intellectually. uh, so
Hmm.
for that reason, I kind of worked with both men and women. But over the years, like I said, what I have realized as I've been researching a lot. I've been talking to a lot of men and women and couples.
Yeah.
And what I did discover was that there is an emerging, group of people, particularly women, because of course both men and women have their challenges, but women, because of the social conditioning and the societal expectations,
That's right.
there are certain additional layers that women need to deal with, which also create those additional subconscious patterns and behaviors, which become some challenges and blockages. So that's one aspect. But then what's fascinating is that women who are earning, now there's a lot of women who are doing really well.
Right.
We've
Yeah, that's
been,
changed a
they
lot in
are in the
India.
boardroom. Absolutely. It has changed a lot. Women are really, working. They are doing really well in every aspect, basically every field, barring taking charge of the money.
Yep.
And
Even if they're the primary breadwinner or earning more than their partner, they're still not actively
yeah, so
engaged in.
whether they are, let's put it that way, even if they're earning more or they're equivalent, or they're, let's, I don't look at it like a comparison in terms of whether you're earning more or less than your partner, but you individually are earning well enough, right? And that in itself, and despite that, you are not taking charge of your finances. And that's the one thing, while you're going after empowerment, you're going after your freedom, your independence, taking charge of your own finances and just maybe knowing about it, even if your
Right.
spouse or whoever it is that is looking into your money, they may have the right intentions. They may be doing everything perfectly well, but let's say, God forbid, if that someday, someone who's doing that for you is not there, what are you comfortable and confident enough to stand on your own? And a
Hmm.
lot of women are not. A lot of high earning women are not, because they just
Yeah.
don't know. They are clueless. And
Well,
that's
and again,
why,
that they're not, the fact that they're not doing it doesn't mean they can't do it, right? And
exactly,
that's really the message we need to impart is that you have a story that this is not something you can do or that you're good at, but the fact of the matter is, you don't have any lack of capacity. That's really
absolutely.
important to understand. What we need to understand is why you're not doing it, which is almost always an emotional or behavioral issue, not a competency or capacity issue, right?
Yeah. And when you start changing that, because these are women who are empowered, they are really
Right,
empowered, they're really, leading from the front. And then why not in this space? Why not?
right.
and and that's the question that keeps coming back to me, and which is why, like I said, I'm starting to pivot to work more with women who are really earning well for themselves and still not kind of taking charge of their money.
Yeah,
And because that's where it's like both of these are coexisting, like they shouldn't, like both of these realities are coexisting for them. They shouldn't. And they're only one step away from kind of accepting that, okay, I allow myself, I give myself permission to take charge of my money. I think that's the most important aspect.
And when you
So
think about it logically, right? So we spend a lot of time and money getting educated. So we have our degrees, and then we go out and we create a career, and then we become more empowered in our career, and you make more and more money. And then what's the point of making more and more money, working harder and harder, if you have no sense or control over even what you're doing financially and you're avoiding it or have a love-hate relationship with it or, whatever the case may be. It's like the end result falls off completely. And then you have to ask yourself, so why did you do all that for? Now, for women, the interesting thing, and I think why women are such really good people to work with in general, is that the main reason that women go out into the world to work and to create for themselves is generally not as money motivated as it is for men because they're not socialized to believe they should become the breadwinner, whereas men are conditioned to believe they're the breadwinner. Now, it hasn't actually worked out that way in especially North America. Women are frequently breadwinners and over earning now their partner. And that wasn't done intentionally necessarily. It's just what's happened. And I'm sure that's happening in India too, right? But in the end, when you think about that, that may be something to write about and talk about within groups of women who basically are far more detached from the financial outcome because it wasn't the reason they set out to create the career they did. They did it for some other driver that's more emotional as well, right?
yeah, that's true. That's true. And also you mentioned about, arranged marriages and not women. What I've also seen, I've had people, whether it is friends, whether it is, so people have arranged marriages, people have love marriages, and in both cases, money conversations are not easy,
Right.
irrespective.
Absolutely. Anywhere.
Uh, yeah, anywhere. And that's just not just in India.
Hmm.
It's in the UK. In fact, when I lived in the UK and I worked with Fidelity, one thing that I was really surprised about, was there was so much emphasis on raising awareness about, financial well-being, financial literacy, but also financial abuse.
Mm. Yeah.
And that was probably the first time I kind of consciously thought about it. Um, and then I thought, does this country also need it? Like, so
Yes,
much of
they do.
literacy
Yeah.
and so that's when I realized it's across the world. And since then I've been kind of meeting, like, because I even with my work, my professional, my corporate work, I worked with people across US, UK, and different geographies, Singapore, Hong Kong, uh, you know, uh, because this kind of was my has been my area of interest. Every time we would chit chat, we would talk about these things, and it's interesting
Right.
to find out it's almost same, irrespective of which geography, which culture. There are just some little tweaks here and there, but it's not significantly different anywhere.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think um, one of the things that I'm really intent on as we grow forward is really beginning to help more parents begin to understand how to raise their children around money differently. I think this is a really critical missing piece. And, I'm in the process of working on something currently that I'll share with, our audience later, but we know that these things start early, that the brain becomes hardwired very, very early. A child's brain is just a recording device and it's recording everything. And the child will grow up to develop patterns either in direct relationship to the way their parents are, um, often developing contradictory patterns because our parents are usually not the same with money. Our parents are often very different from one another. And as I say, and as you know, if in class, it's like if you taught your child to tie their shoes in two different ways, they'd trip, right? Until they figure out that there's one probably better way to do it, and then they're fine. But as a metaphor, that's also true. People are learning very contradictory patterns because the messaging and modeling was quite contradictory. But in the end, if we can help parents understand what they can do differently to make sure that their children do not inherit the challenging patterns and behaviors that are inevitable if they aren't conscious about what they're doing, then this problem will continue throughout history. And it doesn't have to. But I believe it must now. We need to work with parents to help them do better for their children because I don't think any parent wants to give their children bad money patterns, right? Nobody sets out and goes, yeah, I think I'm going to have a bunch of kids and make them have really bad money patterns. Wouldn't that be good? Nobody does
Yeah.
that. And yet that's what happens. In fact, I don't know what your experience has been, and I'm really curious. Um, how many really positive money bios have you ever read where it's just like you read them and you go, wow, you had a charmed life? You have any
None.
of those? Zero.
None.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've read two in almost 30 years where I just read it and I go, I don't really think you might not need money coaching because I didn't see anything here. But even then, we usually will find something that the person is interested in and they come to the work because they think there might be something. But it's extremely rare to read a very positive money bio. And the history is almost always challenging and painful. And
Yeah.
that's a
And that's
statement
irrespective of,
worldwide,
absolutely. And that's irrespective of the background they're coming from. So they may come from
irrespective.
privilege.
That's right.
Yeah, they may come from a lot of privilege. And despite that, and if you are saying that in 30 years you had two, it's I can't be expecting to have seen any of those,
Yeah.
definitely. Like, yeah, it's definitely none. And I wouldn't even think, like, we are all human beings and, we all have our experiences. But yes, coming back to the parents' point, like I said, I mentioned about my pregnancy and how I feel like I am a different person, not just for myself. I am a very different person, a different mother than I would have been if I had not
That's
been
right.
on this journey,
That's
for my daughter. And sometimes the funny part is sometimes I would go to the extent of sometimes, between me and my husband and saying, okay, this is not what you should be doing. And this is
mhm.
particularly because of her, or this is not, how you should be behaving because you don't coach your family. that's that's
Right.
impossible,
Right.
right?
You
And then he
can
says,
you can
this
drop
is
little hints and messages, but in general, it's probably better not to coach your partner. Get them coaching somewhere else because they're not as open and receptive.
yeah, and it's not only my spouse, but then also my parents sometimes, my mother sometimes says, um, you started setting too many rules. Don't do this, don't do that, don't say this, don't say this is not how it should be. But then,
Yeah.
it's just something, it's not that I'm trying to set too many rules, it's just that I can see that if we do
Right.
certain things a certain way, what's the impact it's going to have on the child,
That's right.
which,
And you
I
have
was not
the
aware of.
awareness of that they don't have, and therefore you're more
Yeah.
adamant about it because you know that that's how these things develop into bigger issues later if we're not careful. Right.
Yes, but then, it's a blessing to be aware, because when you are aware, then you can spread it. And then, um, the most important aspect is that once you have kind of developed that awareness, gradually people around you, because yes, that's 1%, now I'm talking about like the 1% of certain things that would now come up in terms of my environment, saying this is too much. There was that earlier, it used to be probably 80%, because when I started evolving, it
Yeah,
was difficult for my environment to accept the new me.
that's right.
And
That
then
happens.
gradually they also have evolved with me,
That's right.
even though they have not gone through money coaching, right? So that's the interesting part, that it's naturally a ripple effect to the children, to your environment, to your family. And once you have evolved, there is no way that you can go back to being the previous
There's no
version of
going
yourself.
back. That is right.
That's absolutely. So you are actually breaking the chain for the next generations,
That's right.
and that in itself is precious. Uh, you know, it's just something that I can't even think. There's no other way that you could do it.
Right. Yeah, I
And yeah,
remember once I was doing a workshop with a family, and the mother had been a client, and she was a psychologist, and she said, my family has really big money issues, and I'd really like to bring my kids in and do a workshop with you. And I said, well, how old are your kids? And her son was 10 and her daughter was 14 or 15 at the time. And I said, well, your son's a little young. I'm not too sure that that's a good idea. Developmentally, I've had a lot of teenagers in workshops, and also sometimes I have parents do little mini programs with me with their young adult or teenage kids. And but she said, he's really mature, and I feel okay about bringing him in the space, even if he doesn't fully participate. I think he'll be picking stuff up that will be important. And I said, listen, you're the mom. If you feel comfortable, I mean, I'm okay. And she goes, I'm comfortable with you, and I'm comfortable with this process. So let's just do it. So here was a fascinating little thing. So all of you who have children, this is just going to tell you why everybody who's a parent should do money coaching as the most important thing you can do for your family. Truthfully, nothing else will really begin to shift dynamics and help you with your partner as well as with your children. So we had done a big process, and at one point in time, the couple we're all in a circle, right? And we're at a table, and the couple started to argue. And I usually don't let that go on. I usually will nip that in the bud. But I started noticing as soon as they started to argue, the children were both drawing little paper that I had given them. And I said, we're just going to talk about some things. You just sit here and you can draw pictures for a while. Well, as soon as they started to fight, I noticed that they started to draw erratically. All of a sudden, their little hands got really erratic and they started drawing very, very erratically. And then I looked at the mother, and I said, are you noticing this? And she said, yes. And I said, okay, so let's stop. And I stopped and I asked the children, I said, I'm just curious, how were you feeling in the middle of what was just going on right then? And the daughter piped up and said, I started to feel really stressed. I said, okay, thank you. Do you feel that very often with your parents when the subject of money comes up? I feel it all the time. All right. And then the son, I asked him, and he said, I felt very, very frightened that something bad was about to happen. And I looked at them and I said, so this is what you're doing unconsciously. And it's very important that you stop. It's really, really important because you're having an effect on them in ways that you don't even know. And they didn't actually know it until I asked them to name it. It was just going on inside of them, right? Later, the next day, we were doing another process where I was asking them, more at the level of, okay, so we've done this big process, and now we're going to think about what do we want to be different in your family, right? And the topic was, how are we going to use our money as a family with, we pay our basic bills and we have whatever, but then with the leftovers, what are we going to do? And I had each of them write separately what they wanted. When it came to the little boy, he's 10. He said, I would like us to have a new couch and better lighting. I'm looking at him and I'm going, that is such an interesting thing for a young man to say. Can you help me understand, why that's really important? And he said, well, our couch is very hard and very uncomfortable, and I don't like spending time there. But I feel very lonely a lot of the time. And I have to work alone in my room all the time because the couch is hard and the lighting is terrible. And I don't want to be alone all the time. And I was just like, okay, parents, this is an important thing. We think our children want more stuff, more things, more toys, more blah, blah, blah. This is a child who's telling you he feels alone and wants to be with you, but you haven't created the environment for that to occur. And this was a fight that they had had before because they didn't want to spend the money on another couch. And I said, the couch isn't as important in the end as understanding what your environment is that you create in general is either conducive to your children feeling really safe and whatever. And if it means that you need to look at that and spend more money, then do so. You can cut somewhere else, right? So, these things come out that are so unexpected if we give it the chance. And that family's life changed after that. And believe it or not, that couple came back to me 15 years later when the kids were grown up. And the kids are doing fine financially, but it fascinated me how those simple little tweaks in their understanding about how they were being, as well as what the real needs of the child were, not what they would have expected in a million years. But we can project a lot based upon what we think people need as opposed to what's really going on. So, anyway, I thought I would share that story with you because I'm just such a big advocate and I'm very interested in working with people. And hopefully, we'll do that in India as well around the family dynamics and money because it's so critical. And that's how we change the future for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. And there are always conflicting dynamics when it comes to families, right? Families are complex structures. They are strong, but
Yeah,
they can be very complicated.
undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. So, Kavita, I just want to thank you for being here today. And I'm very excited about the work that we're going to do in India. Is there anything before we leave that you would like to say to our listeners today that, in terms of any message about the value of the work or what they could expect, anything at all that you just want to share or impart?
Sure. Definitely. I would love to say one thing to everybody listening here that, money coaching is not something which is going to, tell you these are not, this is the way you take better or make better financial decisions, or, these are the right things to do, or those are not the right things to do. It's actually very different than that. It's actually a lens, of money through which you look at your own self, at your own being, your own beliefs, patterns, and habits, the subconscious ones, not the ones that you're aware of. And through money coaching, actually, you not only then when you start looking that way, you not only discover your relationship with money, but more importantly, you discover your relationship with yourself.
Mhm.
And that's life changing. That is something that a lot of us, we're not even aware of consciously. um, Most of us, I would say, because unless somebody is really, has done a lot of inner work, is, really evolved, is a lot of very, whether it is spiritually or in some way or the other, done a lot of inner work, that
Mhm.
person maybe would be able to look at it like that. But money coaching, with such little investment of time, uh, is able to kind of give you that kind of way to look at yourself. And like I said, once you start understanding and unpacking those things, those layers, about yourself, it's not, you're not ever going to go back to that previous version, because it's not about fixing anybody. It's
Right.
about, from all through our childhood we keep accumulating these layers. So it's
That's right.
actually letting go of those layers so that you come back to, the light, the bright you, who you've always meant to be. And
Yeah.
that's the biggest part of money coaching that I am so much in love with. So and once that happens, some people kind of may, I know there are a lot of people who are very, like I used to be, very in their head, very intellectually,
Right.
logically wanting all the answers. And to those people I will say that when you go through this process, you find out your dynamics, and also those dynamics, the money archetypes or the money types, the personalities that are there. The interesting thing is those are only your dominating patterns. They are not your destiny. It's not like your life will always be like that. You will always have those patterns. Those are patterns and certain money dynamics that you picked up as a child, probably in your
Right.
growing up years. Just like how Deborah was explaining, in terms, because of the environment that was around you. And there's nobody to be blamed for it, because your environment, whether it was your parents or anybody else, didn't consciously do it. But yes, you did pick it up. But then you can, once you have that awareness, first of all, of what those patterns are, and then,
Mhm.
the fact that they are not permanent, that awareness is the key where things start transforming.
That's right.
And and because the things start transforming, and you start letting go of those patterns, those subconscious beliefs, that's why logically your financial decisions start changing.
That's
Because
right.
if you try to, in a situation where, how it is said, when the emotions are high, the logic shuts down. It's technically true. It's
That's right.
scientifically true, because when your emotional brain takes over, it hijacks your logical brain.
That's right.
And, all I can say is you can Google it, it's scientific. And
That's right.
when that happens, when you start owning all of this, when you start becoming aware, your brain starts getting back in control. And for that reason, you start getting back the, control over your financial decisions. So you might have known the right thing to do, something as basic as I say, that, in the share market, it's
Hmm.
now it's widely available knowledge that when the market is falling, you should buy. But the trend is, yes, we all know it, but how many people can actually execute that?
Right.
Assuming you have deep enough pockets to do it. I'm not questioning, assuming you have the money to do it, can you still do it? And, and vice versa. You will be able to do it after knowing it when you have overcome these barriers. And
Well,
that's where
and
money coaching comes
yeah,
in.
and that's actually one of the reasons why I think most people need a financial advisor because the financial advisor is not emotional about their financial decisions,
Yes,
right? Most
absolutely.
people are not great traders of their own accounts because of their own emotional dynamics. It makes it more risky. Um,
Absolutely.
it doesn't mean
Yeah, so
that it's
money
not
coaching is not
possible. Right.
absolutely. So money coaching is not a replacement of your financial advisor.
That's right.
It's a journey for yourself to understand yourself and take control of the aspects, and you know be able to execute for your what your financial advisor
Right.
tells you to. Right?
The best
So that's
scenario.
where
Right. Exactly. The best scenario is the person has a money coach and a financial advisor, and they don't need to be the
absolutely,
same person. Most
absolutely,
we have money coaches who invest as well, who are financial advisors and planners, but I think more of us are not financial professionals any longer. You are no longer acting in that capacity, nor do I, but it doesn't mean people still don't need one, right?
absolutely, absolutely. While I don't, act in the capacity of my corporate role, but
Right.
I still do continue to kind of, along with money coaching, I still do continue. I leverage, all of that work that I have done over the past almost 2 decades, and I kind of, combine that in terms of financial education,
Sure.
financial well-being, the financial coachings. I combine that with money coaching,
That's right.
because a lot of things you actually, while you do need your financial advisor for certain decisions, a lot of practical stuff you don't need a financial advisor for. You can do it
Yeah,
yourself. And the
absolutely.
financial advisor actually not even going to do it for you. So
Exactly. Yeah.
you must do it for yourself. So that's also a gap in terms of, which people don't realize. They think the financial advisor will do everything for them. Um, but your day-to-day stuff, you need to start taking control on your own. So
Right.
that's why I kind of, like to bring both of these, my two parts of my life together and put them into my work, in terms of the psychological side of money, subconscious side of money, and practical side of money.
Right.
And it works beautifully together. uh, I would like to end this with, with a note saying that I'm excited, really looking forward to, the more opportunities and the more awareness we're going to create in India, in Asia, and across the world, and spread this work, because it's something that people really, really need, and it's
Right.
life changing.
That's right. Well, I'm excited about this. And for those of you here today, we will be making an announcement sometime in the next month when we're going to be holding our first cohort in India with Kavita, being the lead trainer. So please be on the lookout. If you're listening to this now, you can also reach me through the Money Coaching Institute website, moneycoachinginstitute.com. And Kavita, could you please share with our audience how they can reach you, whatever contact information you'd like to share, website, etc.
Sure. So, just to clear before I share the contact information, just so that you understand this better, the cohort that Deborah just mentioned about, it's about training yourself to be a money coach.
That's right.
Uh, and that journey includes yourself going through the money coaching for yourself, and then of course how you kind of get certified to be a money coach. So it's not just a new career option, but it's life changing in the first place for yourself. That's what it was for me.
Right.
And of course
Absolutely.
it's and like we were discussing, India is a there's a lot of requirement and need for this work, and a lot more money coaches will be required. So definitely you can look at this as something which is a good opportunity for you to kind of enter this work, and you don't need to have any kind of financial background or any kind of prerequisites
That's
uh,
right.
to be a certified money coach. You will be certified by us, and you will get the certificate by the Money Coaching Institute,
That's right.
and that's all that you need. Now, coming back to in terms of getting in touch with me, you can reach out to me on my LinkedIn. It's Kavita Dhamani, or also on my social media. That's again Kavita Dhamani on Instagram, on Facebook, and also kavitadhamani.com is my website. So you can reach me over there as well.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here today and sharing. And I'm really excited about the work that we're going to do. If you want to learn more about the Certified Money Coach training, go ahead and log on to moneycoachinginstitute.com and you can learn more about the training as well. And of course, reach us there via our contact information there. So, everyone, have a wonderful weekend coming up here. And I wish you a wonderful 4th of July coming up. So please be safe out there. And Kavita, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. We will talk again
Thank
very
you for
soon.
having me.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for having me, Deborah. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and looking
My
forward.
pleasure. My pleasure, dear. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.